This is today's world news. Today's first story deals with the failed drone attack against Iran. We're considering that Israel may have been involved, and fault lines by way of Sputnik and Manila Chan had a conversation with Mohammed Morandi about this issue.
You know, this gets into something very complicated, seeing as it sounds like Iran has acknowledged that this is coming from the Israelis. There are reports that I'm seeing is that the drones were launched out of neighboring Azerbaijan. Now, the Azeris are, from what I understand, the largest minority group within Iran's borders. So
this idea that, firstly, and I can maybe summarize what she's implying here and what she's saying directly. This idea that Azerbaijan is a separate place with entirely separate ideas may not be entirely factual. Azeris compose around 16% of the overall population of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So 16%, that's a significant minority. And the northeastern border of Iran links with Azerbaijan and touches Azerbaijan. So this idea that they're entirely separate nations is faulty in a lot of ways, and it will go on here. Morandi himself, the guest that Manila Chan and Jamal Thomas and Malik Abdul have on the show this day, Morandi himself is Azeri. Not only that, the religious leader of Iran, Khomeini, is also Azeri. So this idea that Azerbaijan is completely separate from Iran is not such a salient or a poignant idea. Let's go on.
That complicates it one way. And the other complication would be that we know the Azeris have been on again, off again, fighting with the Armenians for Nagorno-Karabakh. Now, we know Russia is more friendly with Armenia. Turkey is friendly with Azerbaijan.
Again, so here we have it. I may not go any further here because this is the part of Manila Chan's ideas that really spawned this story, right? This idea that Russia is more friendly with Armenia. The first thing that I thought of when I heard this was that maybe a few days before this, I came across an article that had the implications of Russia and Armenia not getting along. So let's look at that as we consider how Russia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, as well as Iran, and some other players in the West Asian region, interact with one another. And so this article is from Al Jazeera, and the title of it is Russia Blames Armenia for the Breakdown of Azerbaijan Peace Talks. So it says, over the past few months, Russia and Armenia's relationship has become fraught with tension over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. And here we have a picture of the Azerbaijani president, Ilham Aliyev, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and the Armenian President Nikol Pashinyan. And they've met repeatedly since 2020. The Nagorno-Karabakh War, which was decisive in controlling a specific area of what we may call Azerbaijan now, entitled the Lachin Corridor, is really important here. That there's language in it that delineates who interacts with who and who is allowed to pass through this corridor, who is securing the area, what the roles of Russia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan are respectively. So this was a tripartite treaty. We'll take a look at some of the language in just a moment. So Russia's blamed Armenia for a breakdown in peace talks with Azerbaijan. And this is again over that disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. For months, Armenia and Azerbaijan, both former Soviet republics, have tried to discuss a peace deal for the contested region in the South Caucasus. Nagorno-Karabakh is internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan, but it's home to mainly ethnic Armenian population. The two neighbors' conflict over the region began at the start of the 20th century and has broken out into war twice, the latest in 2020. Moscow on Thursday accused, and this is last Thursday, accused Armenia of bailing on peace talks, right? So again, we go back to Manila Chan and this idea that Armenia and Russia are allies, are aligned in this dispute or in this conflict. I mean, there's new information on that. So Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said it's difficult to assess Yerevan's position when their official statements differ so significantly. She said Armenia's decision to abandon peace talks scheduled in December in Moscow prevented us from discussing the peace treaty. So it goes a little further here to unpack the tensions. And yeah, we'll get into this part. This is for the past month, it says, Azerbaijani civilians who say they're environmental activists have protested against or along the Lachin Corridor, the only road linking Nagorno-Karabakh to Armenia. Yerevan has called the action an Azerbaijani government-endorsed blockade. Yeah, and in the future, this is the first episode, and each story really spawns 2 or 3 other stories. So I think in the future there will be a story on the legitimacy of the environmental activists from Azerbaijan. Baku says the group has legitimate concerns over suspected unlawful Armenian mining projects and has denied the region is blocked. Yep, and Baku is the Azerbaijani governmental home. And the issue has caused tension in the relationship between allies, Armenia, and Russia. Yerevan has repeatedly criticized Russia's peacekeepers who have been placed at the Lachin Corridor since 2020 to ensure free movement. Armenia has said they're not doing enough to ease the bottleneck, but Moscow has said it's doing everything possible. On Tuesday, Armenian President Minister Nikol Pashinyan said Russia's military presence in Armenia not only fails to guarantee its security, but it raises security threats for Armenia. And on the same day, Armenia announced it would not host military drills by the Russian-led alliance of post-Soviet states. and Pashinyan said it'd be unreasonable to hold these the treaty organization's exercises on the territory of Armenia. And then it goes further to say that they're still allies despite the canceled drills. So not only do we have a discrepancy between what Armenia is saying on the ground and what they're doing, but we also have a discrepancy between whether or not Russia and Armenia are as aligned as they are. And then to add to that, there have been drills that have been canceled, Russian drills inside of Armenia. Yeah, so that story and that idea, particularly the concept of the language within the treaty, right, and how that dictates what it is that each country that is a part of the treaty does in the Lachin Corridor area. Yeah, so that's one of our articles. Then there's another one here that I saw. This is the Armenian press. The first was from Al Jazeera. This is from armenpress.am. Russia says ready to host Armenia-Azerbaijan foreign ministerial negotiations. So Russia is affirming its readiness to organize. Let's make sure this is legible. Here in Yerevan, this is the governmental home of Armenia. Russia is affirming its readiness to organize negotiations between the Armenian and Azerbaijani foreign ministers in Moscow under the auspices of Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson. Maria Zakharova said at a press briefing, "We've notified both Yerevan and Baku about this. We've publicly spoken about this. We consider that the periodically emerging difficulties on the ground should not become obstacles or pretexts for freezing the negotiations process, and it's necessary to resume the work in all directions of the normalization of the Armenian-Azerbaijani relations as soon as possible, including the unblocking of transport routes, border delimitation, and signing of peace treaty, as well as contacts between the civil societies." So what jumps out at me here is this unblocking of transport routes, right? That they mention that first. And so what I did was I took a look at the language within the treaty itself to see who was responsible for that unblocking of the transport routes. And before we do that, though, I want to look at one more Armenian press article. Russia calls for complete unblocking of the Lachin Corridor. The Russian Ministry of Defense, the command of the Russian peacekeeping contingent, in cooperation with the Russian Foreign Ministry, are maintaining permanent contact with all stakeholders, parties, and active efforts for resolving the situation in the Lachin Corridor. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said at a press briefing, "Unlike the majority of the foreign players who were limited to statements and calls to de-escalation, the Russian side searching for real solutions on the ground is providing humanitarian aid. Thus, we call for a complete unblocking of the Lachin Corridor in accordance with the 9 November 2020 statement of the leaders of Russia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, and we call on Baku and Yerevan to demonstrate political will for swift resolution of existing disputes." And so, again, this language about unblocking of the Lachin Corridor, and particularly this 9 November statement, right? So this is the Armenian side, right? And so one may ask, oh, well, what is the Azerbaijani opinion on this situation? How do they see it? Well, if we go to, let's see, this is Azi Media. This is a really extensive article. It's I wouldn't say that it's unbiased. but there are some really important ideas within this, right? And so the subheading of it is that while Azerbaijan gets most of the blame for the ongoing crisis in the Lachin corridor, the international community does not see the elephant in the room. Armenia's shipment of weapons and illegal mining operations through this corridor is intended for civilian use. So, as part of the trilateral declaration signed by Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia on 10 November 2020, it was agreed in Article 6 that the Lachin corridor, 5 kilometers wide, which will provide a connection between Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia while not passing through the territory of Shusha. It's a civilian city in Azerbaijan, shall remain under the control of the Russian Federation peacemaking forces. It further says that the Republic of Azerbaijan shall guarantee the security of persons, vehicles, and cargo moving along the Lachin corridor in both directions. So this is language from point 6 of the treaty, of the tripartite treaty. And this article goes on to unpack the ways that Armenia has been interacting with Russia to move things such as military supplies through the Lachin corridor, right? And so, going back to Manila Chan and this story about how possibly how it's possible that the Iranian drone attack began in Azerbaijan. I think this is super important, to think about in relation to the traffic, who's allowing what, and how that's affecting the other side of the Lachin corridor, which includes Azerbaijan and Iran as well. So this provision, Azerbaijan granted a special entry and exit regime to the Armenian citizens, vehicles, cargo through an 80-kilometer road inside Azerbaijan, the Lachin corridor, to its Karabakh region, populated by the majority of ethnic Armenians. As the road temporarily remains under the control, quote-unquote control, zoom in here, remains under the control of a Russian peacekeeping force, Azerbaijan's army, police, customs, and other agencies do not check the persons and cargo yet. The Russian peacekeeping force supposedly exercises this function on behalf of Azerbaijan. So the eco-activists are mentioned here again, and how they are attempting to limit mining within the Lachin corridor. And it also says here, the debate stems from a misinterpretation of the purposes of the Lachin corridor, that the corridor is temporary visa and custom-free entry to Azerbaijan for Armenian citizens, vehicles, and cargo into the Karabakh region. So the Karabakh region is in Azerbaijan, but it's predominantly Armenian, and so the idea was that the Lachin corridor was to allow citizens and vehicles and cargo, and not necessarily military supplies. So yeah, it goes on to say, importantly, this temporary visa-free regime does not grant Armenia the right to ship weapons, soldiers, and military supplies in disguise to its remaining army units in Karabakh, which remains an overlooked factor in media coverage. So yeah, this article goes on to unpack a solution just rooted in that certain portion of point 6 of the treaty. So the impact of this unfortunate situation on the civilians in Karabakh is notable. To make progress from the current impasse, a balance must be struck between security and humanitarian considerations. So in this context, for instance, the parties can learn from the negotiations regarding the so-called Brexit withdrawal agreements, which ensure the non-intrusive entry and exit customs regime in Northern Ireland. So comparing it to the situation with Britain and Northern Ireland, and supplies back and forth. Currently, there are numerous posts or checkpoints alongside the Lachin corridor, controlled by the Russian peacekeeping force. However, they don't function as expected, considering that weapons and other illicit transportation have been moving across the corridor in time, or in the time that it's been under their control. Azerbaijan apparently doesn't trust the reliability and effectiveness of the existing posts. So yeah, we have that. And again, we'll take a quick look at the language from the treaty itself, particularly point 6, third paragraph, that the Republic of Azerbaijan shall guarantee the security of persons, vehicles, and cargo moving along the Latin corridor in both directions. Right, so essentially, Azerbaijans and some Azerbaijanis think that following this portion of the treaty will rectify the situation in its entirety. I'm not exactly sure about that, but what I do know is that enacting something like that may, just may eliminate attacks like this.
This mobile phone video was aired on Iran's state TV, claiming to show a drone hitting an Iranian military factory in Isfahan on Saturday night. Iran's
So there we have it. And even beyond that, I want to go a little further into the Rumble commentary, because Marandi makes some great points, and also I think Manila Chan adds a few more things to her question here. So let's listen up here.
How do all of these outside big players play into this situation?
Well, I think when it comes to the Republic of Azerbaijan, two things I think should first be mentioned. One is that I don't know of any information that any drones came from Azerbaijan on this occasion. I doubt that, I would imagine that actually these particular drones, and I may be wrong, but they were launched from inside Iran. As I said, using terror groups that are based in northern Iraq. That's my guess. I'm not saying that this is fact. I don't have any confidential information on this, or inside information on this. When it comes to Azerbaijan, my family name is Marandi, which means a person from Marand, and that is an Azeri city in Iran. Or the leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. Khamenei, he is from Khamenei, that's the meaning of his family name. Khamenei is an Azeri city. He is very fluent in Azeri. Azeris in Iran are very much part of Iranian society. And the country that fears the Azeri population is probably the Republic of Azerbaijan, because they're afraid that religious identity in Azerbaijan may grow. And remember, Azerbaijan was a part of the Soviet Union. It was always secular, and people were taught to be secular. And religious sentiments in Azerbaijan have grown over the last few decades, and they are Shia. So the government in Azerbaijan has constantly cracks down on religious festivals, religious gatherings, and that sort of thing in Baku and in other cities. But I don't think that in this particular case we're talking about any Azerbaijani involvement. I think that most probably the Israeli regime used its proxies that are funded by the West. These groups in northern Iraq, they're funded by NATO countries. They're funded by Saudi Arabia. And
Yes, so this is sailing to the point that Morandi and Khomeini, the leader of Iran, is from Azerbaijan. And we think about this relationship between these countries and their people. This idea that, for example, a place like Kosovo is 90-something% Albanian, and again that Azerbaijan 16%, 16% Azeri. Not only that, but another statistic that I came across was that the Republic of Iran has 3 times the population of Azeris as Azerbaijan does. And so the number of Azerbaijanis, or Azeris, the number of Azeris in Iran is 3 times that of those in Azerbaijan. So in a sense, of course, Azerbaijan or Azeris are not the majority, but there's more of them. They have more of a presence in the borders of Iran. So we'll continue to unpack this story, to keep our eye on it here at TR News. And at this point, let's see. Let's just